Rishi Sunak has secured a deal for coordinated European action to tackle the rising number of irregular migrants arriving on our borders at a special summit of European leaders in Spain, with Ursula von der Leyen praising the deal as a real game changer. Joining me now to find out whether this is indeed a game changer is our man across the channel, Gavin Mortimer. He's a writer for The Spectator based in Paris. Welcome, Gavin. What's your take on this? I mean, you know, they all got together in Spain, in Granada. Funnily enough, the Spanish, for reasons I can't quite work out, tried to keep the migrant crisis off the agenda. And Rishi and Giorgia Meloni, the Italian leader, insisted they did talk about it. They're saying now they've come to some sort of agreement about coordinating what they will do about this migrant changer. Your thoughts?
Kevin, you cynic. And I'm exactly the same as you. It won't be a game changer. Deja vu, we've been hearing this for years. And the fact, as you mentioned there, Kevin, that it was only Meloni and Rishi Sunak's insistence that migration was put on the agenda in the first place. I mean, it beggars belief. This is the issue that is the main preoccupation of every European nation, and yet the leaders still don't get it. And apparently Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, emerged from a meeting yesterday looking particularly pleased with himself, saying, problem solved. It's not the problem solved. And just this week, Kevin, very interesting, because focus has been on Italy, the central Mediterranean route. This week alone, hundreds of migrants have been rescued by the Greek Coast Guard, and hundreds of migrants have come up into the Canaries in Spain from the Western Mediterranean. And, you know, this year, 15,000 migrants have arrived in the Canaries. That's an increase on 20% last year. The problem's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
This is all about tackling people smugglers. I mean, yes, we have to tackle people smugglers, but I always think that politicians, you know, in any issue, but on this issue, they've got to find their pantomime villains. And these are the evil people smugglers. We've got to catch the people smugglers. Well, if you do, there'll just be new people smugglers who will come in to meet the demand. I don't think there's enough focus on the fact that these migrants are busy breaking the law as well. They're trying to come into countries illegally. And since they're in the mood for solutions, saying, oh, yeah, coordinated effort, we're going to share intelligence. These are all classic vagaries that don't amount to a hill of beans. Why don't they talk about something that might work? You know, so we're talking about maybe 200,000 migrants might reach the shores of Italy this year alone. Why don't they start turning the boats back?
No, that's the only way to do it. And it's what Tony Abbott, the former Australian Prime Minister, who very successfally, both Tony Abbott, centre-right, and Kevin Rudd, who's the Labour leader, Prime Minister 10 years ago, they were both in agreement that it was the pushback policy was the only policy that would work. And indeed, it did work. From 25,000 illegal migrants in 2012, 2013, within 2 years, not one. More importantly, Kevin, not one death at sea, not one drowning. And that's what motivated the Australians. They wanted to save the migrants' lives, because since 2016, 16,000 migrants have died in the Mediterranean. Add a couple of hundred in the Channel to that total, and it's appalling. But the pushback policy saves lives, and also it avoids the social disintegration that we're slowly beginning to see in Europe, because the sheer numbers of illegal immigrants coming into Italy, to France, to the UK is unsustainable. And these politicians, as you said, they can grandstand as much as they like and pat each other on the back, but the migrants will still come. And I wrote a piece recently for The Spectator quoting Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French Prime Minister, president, who said, this is just the beginning. The population of Africa at the moment is 1.3 billion. By 2050, these United Nations figures, by the way, it will have doubled to 2.5 billion. So this is just the beginning.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that the problem with this summit, I mean, I've got nothing against world leaders, European leaders, getting together to talk about international problems. That's great. As you rightly say, Gavin, it's mostly about their egos so they can pose for the cameras and look important. But this multilateral approach to every crisis, I don't think works. And essentially, what worries me about this summit, it was Rishi Sunak basically going to the EU and saying, what are we going to do about the migrant crisis? Well, we left the EU so we could make our own sovereign decisions. I think our own sovereign decisions should be, A, we leave the European Convention on Human Rights and, by extension, no longer be subjected to the sometimes absurd rulings of the European Court of Human Rights, and B, we start turning the boats back in the middle of the English Channel. I've never understood why they say, you can't turn the boats back in the middle of the English Channel because it's lethal, it's so dangerous. But apparently you can tow them into Britain. So as long as you continue the journey, that's very safe. But if you turn them round and do exactly the same journey in the opposite directions, that's not safe. It's all BS, isn't it?